Greetings, children in time and space! It's your host, Tomoya Shadow, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back once again to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We're going to be continuing right where we left off. In the last live stream we had for the Great Ace Attorney, we had finished the first game of the game. So now we are diving into the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. So, without further ado, let's get started right away with today's adventure and see what's in store for us. Allons-y!
Standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean. Those days in London seem like a dream. But I do miss my time in England's vast capital.
Ah, this is delicious water.
You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court. Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home.
I find myself faced with another awful crime. This woman again?
So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer. So please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
Oh wait, she got murdered. Wait a minute, what? The Adventure of the Blossoming Attorney. That's of August, 8:26 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendant's Antechamber 3. Here I am again after 9 months. The Supreme Court of Judicature of Japan. I feel so nervous, but I must steel my nerves and find a way to compose myself. Ah, good, you're here. It doesn't do for a lawyer to be late. Oh, yes, good morning, sir. I hardly recognize you. You cut a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet, and those wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Oh dear. The truth is, I'm so incredibly nervous, I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I'd never been born. Goodness, not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say. Eugene Mikotoba, professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University. A man who early in his life traveled to Great Britain to study the latest advances in forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me. Ooh, she's cute. Would I be correct in thinking that you're to be my lawyer in court today? Oh, yes. Yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. I swear on my life. It's a complete fabrication, this whole thing. Ray Memambi, born the same year as I and my greatest friend. Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the University Research Laboratory helping my father. And sadly, she's the defendant in today's trial, accused of committing a truly awful murder. Are you feeling all right? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh my, it's just that you look so gallant and dashing. Sorry. And when I fall under your intense gaze, it makes me feel rather bashful. Goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am. It would seem my little plan for this trial is going to work. Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikatoba? If even your best friend can't see through the disguise, I think we can relax. Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father? What? Is that you, Susato? I'm so sorry I didn't say something sooner, Ray. It's just that... No! What are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cap, that varsity cape, that varsity badge. Look at you. You look for all the world just like a student of the Imperial Yume University. A male student! I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see... It was the only way. The only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take on defense in this trial. My defense? Never before in my life have I felt so frustrated at having been born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We're not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom. Despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike. But women are forbidden. Just for today, I'll be leaving my true self at the courtroom door, so that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you go to such lengths for me. Of course, you're my greatest friend. I just worry that I shan't be the lawyer you deserve. Oh no, I have complete faith in you. Ray. You're so strange, though. I mean, you're such an accomplished judicial assistant already, and yet just because you're a woman... What a wretched reason! I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed in court? You're so gallant and dashing. Ray, please don't look at me like that, with those flushed cheeks and doting eyes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, you really do look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice. You should be pleased. It means you look convincing as a man. I am pleased, I think. It certainly hoped to bolster my confidence today. Ray, you're managing to put on a brave face in all this, but I can see through it. I've noticed how your shoulders are slumped, and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Susato, you do believe me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder. Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly clean. Isn't that right? Yes. Yes, it is. Perfectly clean. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence, which is why I'll stand by you until the bitter end of this trial. Whatever happens, I'll always be on your side, because that's what it means to be a defense lawyer. That means so much to me, Susato. Defendant! Counsel! Court is about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once. You should go in at once, Ray. If you're late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty. Oh. Stand aside! I don't think I've ever seen her run so fast. Well, Susato, you certainly surprised your father, going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom, and with no prior experience of being a lawyer. There was simply no other way. That's all there is to it. But Father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I'm right in assuming that Ray doesn't know how it came to this? Yes, quite right. I've kept that information from her. It would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take our case. I didn't want to burden her with that. And is it true? The reason why every other lawyer is refusing to take the case? Is it really because of who the victim was? We should be making a move now, too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I'll do what I can to support my student. Thank you, Father. I'm Susato Mikatoba, a judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied a student of law on a study trip to Great Britain, but 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that he were here, I wonder. Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruhodo-san. August, 9 a.m., Supreme Court, Adjudicature, Courtroom 1. This court is now in session to hear the trial of Ray Mbambi. The prosecution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency. Defense Counsel, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency. We are ready. Ready. Ah, yes, Counsel. According to your registration details, your name is, Ryutaro Naruhodo. Is that correct? Sorry? Oh yes, I had to come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture. I'm afraid to say I simply put down the first name that sprung to mind. Well, Counsel? Yes, that's right. That's me. Yes, I am Ryutaro. He who has vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruhodo clan. Ah. It seems Ryutaro may need to consider how better to uphold his manly act first and not overdo it. And those wild, wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Just relax and listen. Naruhodo? A fresh face to this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. The name Naruhodo. Would that perchance be... You may be thinking of Ryunosuke Naruhodo, currently in Britain as part of a study program. This is, his cousin. That's right. Ryutaro here has been studying in the provinces, but was called to the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matters of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers. Any of them. What a pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has had to call in a country boy. How dare you! Susato is every bit as gallant and dashing as any of your Tokyo attorneys. I won't have you making fun of her. Please be careful, Ray. What an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not. I'm so nervous. Not understanding in his shoes, I'm starting to understand what Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wont to flit. Oh dear. The case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interests. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire. Just like the trial 9 months ago. And yet for proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown yokel by the dock. Dear me. Perhaps this would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense, to determine whether you are sufficiently competent to practice in this courtroom. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruhodo stood where you're standing now, this same judge tested him as well. And even though he was just a student at the time, not even of law, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, counsel, do you consent to answering some simple questions? It's time to prove myself. Yes, Your Excellency, but please do make them simple. Very well. To start with, you will state the name of the victim. Whew, that is simple. I couldn't forget that if I tried. No! What's the matter? Now that I'm standing in the shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, minds are wont to blank. It's not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position, and in that guise. Even a bright spark like you is bound to flicker and falter a little under the circumstances. Oh dear, this is a dismal failure. Don't fret. You need only use the knowledge you've gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem. Of course, the court record. Yes, the answer will be amongst all the key information about the case in the court record. That's right, just use R1 to open the court record. Then you need to flip to the people section with R1. And don't take too long over it. His Excellency is watching you closely. Alright, check the court record with R1. That's where the information I need will be. If I'm correct, the victim is, yep, Giselle Brett. the woman that was the murderer in the last game. Alright. I'm waiting, counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case? Giselle Brett.
Yes!
Look at that petite hand, bruh. The name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Brett. Giselle Brett. A name that will never be forgotten in the courtrooms of our country, I'm sure. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you'll be well aware of the significance of that name. So, let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was a visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why then is our name indelibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten that case from 9 months ago, but if it's proving hard to recall the finer points, everything you need is included in the court record. Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Brett. Behind the woman's student persona was the face of a killer.
Yes!
She was a murderer. 9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University was killed, and the culprit was Giselle Brett. Yes, she was a killer. At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain, and it was in the midst of this delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead. I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikotoba. Yes, I was indebted to the man. He'd been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who invited him here to Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly. Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here at the Supreme Court. A student of the Imperial Yume University was arrested on suspicion of murder, a second-year English language student by the name of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Brett. Miss Brett eventually admitted to her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take Dr. Wilson's life, she gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion. Immediately after trial, the British government brought its consular jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Brett according to our empire's laws. It was decided that she would be removed to Shanghai, China, instead. Why Shanghai? There's a British consular court there. Correct. I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board a steamship. And yet, the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed. Only the day before? That will do. I'm satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant. Oh. Thank you, Your Excellency. Over the first hurdle. Now, a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Auchi. As you wish, Your Excellency. The repugnant crime took place on the 11th of August in broad daylight. On the outskirts of the imperial capital, under a bright blue sky at a secluded bathing spot by the sea. The incident occurred inside a small beach hut, erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung, an injury which proved fatal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death, Miss Brett in her bathing attire, and the accused, Ray Mbambi. Accordingly, there could be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially considering she had a powerful motive. What motive? The police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady. Well, That extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat lost for words, I must say. That's certainly true. The prosecution summary was full of words that raised an awful lot of questions. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about the bathing spot. If I may, Prosecutor Ostrich. What do you want, you fresh-faced young yokel student? I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned the bathing spot. Ha! My apologies. Clearly my modernity has confused the poor country bumpkin's simple mind. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is curative, therapeutic, and excellent for the skins. No, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had, to all intents and purposes, been found guilty of murder. Why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea? For old time's sake, I believe. Sorry? Miss Brett was to depart for Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government to comply. But on what grounds will we agree to such a request? Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. In matters of diplomacy, it seems we don't even have the courage to decline the whims of a known criminal. Don't look at me, Professor! It was the government who granted permission, not I! In any case, it was decided that with a dedicated detective on duty, nothing could go wrong. But in fact, a murder took place. I said don't look at me! It was that young student girl who did it, not I! No one has proved that yet! I wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to. At this stage, I need to gather more information, I think. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about being alone together. Membambi-san. Yes, what is it? I mean, Naruhodo-san. I'm really starting to wish we'd made my alias Ryotaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you were present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, well, no, that's not true. It wasn't like that at all. There were other people present, a detective who was guarding Miss Brett, for starters. I was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all. But let us be clear. At the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut. You and no one else. The truth is, there is only one reason why this young woman accomplished Miss Brett on a bathing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life. No! Because, as we know, the following day would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. And the accused would never have an opportunity to dispatch her again. Kindly refrain from conjecture, counsel. The prosecution counsel seems to enjoy using provocative tricks like that, but for it now at least, we need to assemble more facts. Try not to let them goad you. Oh dear, this is really terrifying. The father's right. We need more information. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel and what he said about. You're clearly exaggerating. Powerful motive is a blatant overstatement. Is the yokel boy using long words he doesn't fully understand? I beg your pardon. No matter, let us put this to the accused, shall we? Membami-san, you're a research assistant at the Imperial Yume University, I believe. Yes, I am. I'm working with Professor Mikotoba in his laboratory at the moment. I can confirm that. The defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility. Fascinating to hear. Now, another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikotoba, whose research were you assisting then? Oh, I was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson. Dr. Wilson? The visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Brett 9 months ago. The accused had a deep-seated respect for our former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true? Yes, Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man. Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the woman who killed him. Well, obviously I was filled with hatred for what she'd done. A powerful hatred. Oh no, Ray, be careful what you're saying. The motive was revenge. Plain and simple, Your Excellency. I believe we all have a clear picture of the incident now. Despite her guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid incarceration, instead continuing her research work at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Ray would have encountered each other on a number of occasions, seeing the murderer of the mentor for whom she had such great respect enjoying such undeserved liberty. Yes, even if it was only temporary until Miss Brett's extradition to Shanghai, you can hardly blame Ray for her feelings of anger and resentment. Poor Ray. So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind as to peruse this exhibit, a photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the grim incident. Yes, thank you, Counsel. A tragic image. As you can clearly see, there is nowhere within the hut that anyone else could have hidden. The court will accept this photographic print as evidence. As I understand it then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant. Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case. We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime, and damning evidence. Witnesses? But who? One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. I assure you, the testimony of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt. Ugh. Very well then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses. I, Taketsuchi Aochi, have been waiting for this moment. Sorry? Oh yes, I haven't forgotten. That trial 9 months ago, here in this very courthouse, when that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Ryunosuke Naruhodo! What, yes? This insult to the Aochi family name will never be forgotten. You've become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old have to stand aside and make way for the new. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that. Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died. The start of your own mini Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Counsel? Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there has been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the Aochi growth. You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown? I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. I'm afraid I can't really see. Where is the hope exactly? I said silence! Today I face another Yoko student of the Naruhodo class. Well, I will vanquish you, and my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand. It looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. The prosecution and defense each has much to lose. A haircut is hardly comparable to Ray's life. These two again! Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga, Imperial Police Bureau. I'm in disguise, obviously, so I could go undetected. And I am, well, the next big thing in books, and also renowned throughout the capital, in fact. Yes. Soon to be sold out, the satirical I Am a Cat, a successful success by Soseki Natsume. Oh my goodness. Struggling student from the provinces, please. You needn't be in awe of me. I needn't? It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence. But all of you, please relax. Call me Soseki, even. Yes. What on earth is Soseki-san doing here? Tread carefully, Susato. That author fella knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun. Yes, of course, I know. I presume Soseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I can certainly never forget him. Although he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months or so that it's been since I last saw him. And as for Inspector Hosonaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something on my face? Well, your glasses for one, although they don't seem to be helping you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Ah, I suppose it's this disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present, but what business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki-san? Well, you see, I had been asked that day to give a lecture. On the morning of the incident, in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the medical science department. The professor over there, in fact. With Professor Mikotoba? Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story or other about 2 former students who'd studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renowned author, the press never leave me alone. They secretly spy, snap shots, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy! As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provisional struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. He practically threw that paper at me. The Soseki Natsume article has been entered into the court record. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, the lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words. As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory, under strict surveillance, of course. At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance, and the response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as a detective accompanies her. That detective, I am at liberty to divulge, was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. Thereby, the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems. It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. Oh my, Inspector, you... Well, you do have something on your face now. Oh, how unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean that you went to the beach too, Father? No. Fortunately, I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that, as my assistant, Ray was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. But if only I had, I'd never have seen that awful sight! Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret! Very well. I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You'll give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Of course, Yaga, let's see. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret, I am... On the day of the incident, I was ordered on special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question. Yes! That young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand, as she stabbed wildly. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. Excuse me, multiple times? Uh-huh. Only a single knife wound? Already slipping up, Inspector! Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses here present saw it, the very moment of this heinous crime. What? Now, if you will recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Ah, yes, that was it. Damning evidence. What have you there, Counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene while still examining the body. It appears that in her dying moments, with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify her killer. What? Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more. Ah, goodness me! Yes, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately there in her hand. That's right, the fountain pen. And if you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency. Ah, the owner's initials have been engraved into the ebonite barrel. R.M. Ray Mbambi. The initials of the defendant. No! This fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence. So, have I omitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. I don't understand. The prosecutor out you of 9 months ago had none of this man's poise. Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Naruhodo-san! Naruhodo. That means... Oh, yes, me! Is there another Naruhodo in my courtroom? Actually, there isn't even a single Naruhodo in your courtroom. Cousin Ryutaro, pull yourself together, please. Alright, I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimonies to prove that they're lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. Well, the answer is already obvious. We need to present the post-mortem report to statement number 5 in this cross-examination because she only got stabbed once. He said she got stabbed multiple times. No. 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 And that's the one.
Objection!
With that accusatory cry that just welled up from deep inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. What's the meaning of that menacing pose, counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? How? Not you, Soseki-san. This query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga. At me. In your statement just now, I like the music that's playing. In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said, when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Get to the point, please, counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. And he's coughing up blood again! In other words, Inspector Hosanaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Soseki-san, me? You claim to have seen Mbambi-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes I did. Wildly! But both you and the inspector confirmed the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and it's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there's no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred. True! And what exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Seki-san, in fact, saw was not the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant, in fact, withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That can't be! Excellent work, Susutos. You exploded at them without objection, and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically. Well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene with much like this in that trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection, attempting to steal the show. You're right, there were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair. Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed! Bruh, you have no hair! That's just a swirl! In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man! When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. And it was that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood, because the accused had already stabbed the victim. All you have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustache author is prone to moments of extravagance. I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too. The prosecution demands an explanation, and it had better be good. Why did Ray pull out the knife? Ah, yes, going for the jugular. What does father mean by that? Let the court hear your answer then, counsel. The truth is, I don't really know. But I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could save her life. That one's easy. Save her life! According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Membambi-san was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we could expect of this young yokel. Indeed. Ugh. Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Your Excellency, if I may. Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. In respect to the slipshod assertion just put forward by the yokel defense counsel, I mean. Slipshod? An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense. Very well, Inspector. I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel assertion. Yes, sir. I will do so flawlessly. Forensic medicine primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. Yeah, that's true. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see. This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then, why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett? I don't know. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have? Suzuto. Yes, pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here. Ah! Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my education immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing your clients are fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Now, the only thing about this cross-examination here is that I didn't notice anything that could be considered inconsistent. Let me see something. Magnifying glass. Kitty! Okay, it's not like I can examine this thoroughly, so maybe... Maybe, let me just go ahead and pass through all of this, because I think I need to learn how to examine stuff. I can't press on any of this, otherwise it's going to end up blowing up in my face. Yeah, don't press on anything. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it. Suzuto, it's at times like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. The fundamentals? Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it? Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already. I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too. Ah! I realize this is your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom, so if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help. Examine the evidence in the court record? It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? May as well ask for a refresher. Yes, Father. Spartan guidance is what I need. I think that might be overdoing it slightly, but... Very well. So open the court record first of all with R1. Now, let's take a look at the fountain pen, which was submitted as evidence most recently. Simply press X to examine it further. That's all there is to it. Yes, the initials RM. There they are, clearly engraved on the barrel. By using the right analog stick, you look at the piece of evidence from all angles. You should have a good look at everything to make sure you haven't missed any clues. Yes, I will. I just need to rotate the pen with R and watch closely for anything out of the ordinary then. Oh, hello. That's odd. There's some sort of emblem here. Look. But it isn't a Yume University one. It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. The details of the fountain pen have been updated in the court record. Okay, let me see here. Since I examined this, we know that this pen cannot belong to Ray. It has to belong to someone else. In RM. Could it be Moriarty? I mean, we have a Sherlock Holmes character in here, so maybe Moriarty. But let's examine this for a second. So let's check the back. This is the newspaper from Soseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. From Yume's medical research? Father, isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen? It's this morning's paper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard of any such thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned his information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there? It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I put Ray in charge of the project. Ray? She was managing it? If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. We need to read this article very carefully. The article of the poison has been entered in the court record. Okay. Poison. Since poison is being introduced into this again, let me see this statement here. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Maybe the poison might be a reason.
Objection!
The poison might be a good reason. No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What? Ha! The yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified? It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial Yume. The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance in this case. But, Prosecutor Alchi, you will let the defense speak. But a newspaper article! The court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry. Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion. Your Excellency! Yes, of course. Thank you. Ray would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says, it's deadly in tiny quantities. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body and a knife laced with the poison is rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting if the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Mbambi-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible? Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. What?
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense. Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document. Well, that's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold. Oh please, this is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking a wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for a medical assistant to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense. Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, yokel? Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds. What? You can't possibly. From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. Hang on a minute. Do I have it? Examine. Extreme meiosis, pupil constriction was observed in the victim. Her eyes! Her eyes! That's, and that's what gave it away, that she was poisoned right there. From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In that case, Counsel, you will present the proof to the court now. What evidence demonstrates a clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper articles, the post-mortem report? I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim. Oh! Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death. Well, under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes. What are you doing, you yokel detective? In a newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? If the defendant, upon seeing this victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Alchi, I think you'll agree. This is very compelling evidence. You yokel student and yokel professor! Is everyone a yokel now? I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions. No! Yujin Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency? I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any death. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Ha! Listen to the bumbling academic! Unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper! I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision. Father. A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them off on killing sprees! That's totally unfounded. None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray, Membami-san, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew. I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was the day that the professor and Saseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was. Why didn't you let me know immediately? I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. The thief? You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was that dainty English woman. Ooh, hoo, hoo, my fingers are itching. I hate that. Miss Giselle Brett. That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. Well, she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me, and then collapsing on the floor. That's when I saw the knife in her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they'd shrunk to tiny pinpoints. I don't believe it. In other words, you realize that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison. My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips whilst I'd been with her, which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body, on the blade of the knife in her back. And that train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade. Yes, if the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I had hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time. Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end. Thank you, Your Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here, in this courtroom now. Oh, joy! Your Excellency, do not be deceived! The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say. Well, Membami-san, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, you have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim, motivated by revenge. But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Oh, I have evidence. It is very much conclusive. What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it. You have produced the aforementioned evidence at 1%, Prosecutor Alchi. Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student. What? I had imagined there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you've brought this on yourself. What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty of the air on that bench is almost palpable. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature, for it shows the precise moment that Membami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back! No, that's not true! I don't believe it. Order! 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 Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom? Perhaps his voice has yet to break? These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature. I'll show you who's slow to mature. Careful now. Suzuto is starting to show her face here. It is often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence. The incriminating photograph has been entered into the court record. I can't believe he's had a photograph like that up his sleeve the entire time. Wait, I noticed something about that photograph. Hello? There's another witness. There's definitely another witness, because if we pay attention to this, Raka's England and returnees tell all. This is the interview with you and Saseki-san, is it, Father? Yeah, whoever took the picture, of these two also took the picture, of, Ray as well. Because, see, it's got a crack. There's a crack in the image. Looks as though was quite an exchange. Yes, he became a little overanimated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate chopped me on the neck. I do hope you weren't hurt. Can't believe he's had a photograph like that up his sleeve the entire time. It's such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took that photograph? Right. That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention. Oh.
Objection!
That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. Ah! I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once. Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday, but there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown. Goodness. Are we to understand then, counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court? When you first produced that print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment, because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you? Silence, you yokel student and blabbering professor! What matters is the blatant truth that this print so eloquently expresses. But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment that the knife was plunged in the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings. Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim, and the scene it captures is without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear. Oh no! Suzuto, this is the time for you to fight. If what you've established so far is true, then there can be no doubt. This photograph shows the moment that Ray withdrew the blade from the victim. Yes, we just need to prove that somehow. You'll have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the promises. And to rue the day you came up against Takatsuchi Aochi in a court of law. If I can't determine who took this photograph, the trial is going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be some way of working out who took it. Well, counsel? Your Excellency, the burning question is who took that photograph, and the truth is... I think I have the answer. This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal. What? No, you can't possibly! But, as you so boldly claim that you can, please, do enlighten us. Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name. How utterly underwhelming. Did you really believe you could? However, I am able to present evidence. The defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity. What? Very well then, counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mysterious photograph? This! Right here!
Take that!
What is that? The newspaper again. Raucous England returnees tell all. It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photographs. If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right-hand side. Ah, yes, indeed. They had already caught my eye, as it happens. Ha! What of it? A shadow of some kind, perhaps, presumably, from the branches of a tree or the like. There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you. Now, if you look closely at this photograph, it's the same lines. Good gracious! Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph, too. Well, Well, that tells us nothing. Ha! Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely, from the branches of a tree. There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at the beach, Council. What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired? The curious matching pattern that appears on both photographic prints is a result of a camera defect. I'm guessing the lens is cracked. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs. With the photographic device? Yes, we can confidently say that the camera's lens must be scratched, and that the scratched lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device. In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera. But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one. I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Algae, that one of the photographs featured in a newspaper article. A newspaper? Ah! That's right. The author of that article is the mystery witness to this crime. Wah! Many Mimo? What? I see why you were called a raucous English fraternity. What are you yelling about? You've already testified. It's many memo. Many memo, I tell you. Many memo. Me-me-me-mo. Saseki-san, what was that? Did you say many memo? Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from the Shoyu News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Writing Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from dawn till dusk. Ah, now that he mentions it. They secretly spy, snapshot, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. Could that same reporter be... A camera to the left of him, a notebook to the right. There I am, stuck in the middle with Writing Many Memo. So you're saying that this picture was taken by Many Memos? Yes, my lord, your excellency, Esquire. Officer, find this newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime. Oh, yes, your excellency. As you say, your excellency. And one more thing. I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. You will solicit the assistant of the Imperial University's medical department for the task. Understood? Many memo! Wow, we're only in part 1 and there's already a to be continued. Seriously, the tutorial stage, freaking long. How long have I been recording? An hour and 14 minutes. I'm going to save and end it here because my God, it took an hour and 14 minutes just to get past the first part. Anyway, that is officially all the time I have for today. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the Let's Play, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out Mother Roy's YouTube page. Click a link in the description below. The Achieve Dream being my kaka, but you can share too. You won't be disappointed. And of course, click that little bell button if you wish to be notified whenever I upload a video or a live stream to my channel. And most importantly, if you wish to see the other Let's Plays I've done, you can do so by checking out my playlist section. All my videos are there archived for your viewing entertainment, so you can watch the first part of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, God of War, Final Fantasy 15, and many, many more. Thank you all for watching. As always, hosted by Shadow, and I'll see you for the next adventure. Goodbye, everyone!